You have on your seats a piece of paper, but don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. Because if you pick it up, you'll read it, okay? Sorry, I've got to go back to the microphone. That's hard work for me. So when you go home, read it, inwardly digest it, okay? And what's within it, no need to look at it. I'll tell you. Watch me. There is green, yes? And there is, I don't know what colour that is, shades of red, orangey, that colour, okay? See the different colours? Now, I want to be very clear that there are two options of training that we're talking about for elders, okay? And we've colour-coded them for you appropriately. Okay, happy? So the green one is what I want to talk to first, and then the red one is what I want to talk to second, and then once I've done that, then you can pick them up and flick through them, and I'll take some questions, and I'm sure there's things that will come up there. We have done elders training, well, Christ College has done elders training since it began. If you want to look at our constitution, that's one of the things that has been given to us by the Assembly, elders training. So it's happened for time immemorial. For the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however long it's gone for, we decided to do a presbytery-based thing, and we put on a travelling roadshow. We went around pretty well every presbytery in the state, except maybe one or two. We went down to Tasmania. We went back to some presbyteries even a second time. It was great. Did anyone take part in it? Did anyone do part of it? Yep, good. Lots of you did it. So that was great. It served its purpose, and we're really pleased with it. But we saw that basically we need to go to the next step now and do something different. And so we have developed a two-pronged approach to elders training that is, rather than being done at a presbytery level, but can be done either at an individual level or at a session level. Okay, now I'm probably going to talk about sessions most of the time on the way through, but let me just put this caveat at the beginning. You can do it as an individual. You can do it if you're not an elder. You can do it if you are a potential elder. You can do it in any context, but it's targeted for elders and probably best done in a session, but that's your call as much as it's mine. Okay? Got all those caveats? Let me tell you what it is. So, it's basically this. Can you see that? You can see that. We have developed 8 modules that we are going to roll out. And if you can't read that, it's in the book, but you can read it later. 8 modules that we will roll out over the next 8 terms, school terms, from the beginning of next year. So that means 4 modules a year. Okay? Now, it's important to know that we are rolling them out at that pace, because I'm going to say to you a bit later on that you can pick and choose all over the pace and go whichever way you want to go through them. But of course, they'll only be available, and it'll take 2 years to roll them out. Okay? So I'll talk about that a bit later on. We've basically picked modules that we think are important for elders to have on board. Let me go through what's in there. The first one is about eldership. Okay, you can see up there, it's on elders in Christ Church, a little bit of understanding about the qualities of elders, biblical basis for elders, eldership. The second one is about the gospel, because we think that's pretty important. It's a word that is bandied around all over the place. If those of you who know me well will know that there is one thing that aggravates me beyond all description, is just talking about the gospel without defining it. Okay, so we're going to hopefully, we will define what it means to be gospel driven. Thirdly is elders have a theological basis, and unlike members who just have to be Christians, elders need to sign off on our theological standards. So these are the truths we confess. Fourthly is basically trying to understand our Australian context. And I reckon most of us in this room, and particularly if you've got young people in your congregation, that's not as easy. We've just had the Gospel Society and Culture report, so I don't need to reassess that or re-emphasise that. But meeting our Australian context. Pastoral care is the next one. Leadership is the next one. Elders should be apt to teach. So teaching and how we understand that one is there. And then the last one is actually understanding the mission of the church and how you understand yourselves as an elder in that missiological push of where the church is at. So there's 8 modules. They will be rolled out, 1 per school term from the beginning of next year in that order. Okay? Now, within that content, and this is coming back to the question here from Ben, we've actually gone to the same 6 graduate attributes that we had for the course of training, which are love God in Christ, know God in Christ, know self in Christ, care for people like Christ, lead God's people under Christ, and preach and teach Christ from the scriptures. That's exactly the same as for the course of training, except instead of having 73 descriptors under there, we've only got that many. Okay, if any of you are bored, you can add up how many there are, let me know. And so basically we are looking at how to fulfill attribute descriptors so that we want to not just fill the head of the elder with knowledge, we want affective development, we want skills development, etc. What will this cost you? Well, it'll cost you a little bit of money, but it won't be much. We haven't set the fees yet, but it's not going to be much, okay? We're going to make it as affordable as you possibly can, okay? But it will cost you, the more important cost that I'm sure you're all worried about, is in terms of time. It's how long is a piece of string for any course, but in most academic institutions they talk about demand hours, and we are working on 10 demand hours for every module. So that means you should lose about 10 hours of your life in a school term if you were to do this. So for example, in one school term, you may have 2 session meetings, should you do it through session. And you may devote 1 hour of each session meeting to do some sort of stuff within that. And then we would expect that to be supported by about another 8 hours over a term. What's that going to look like? We're going to have different teaching modules going in there. There'll be some that's print-based. We're hoping to get some that's video-based. We may have some podcasts. We'll have different things that will help you in terms of learning. And then there will be assessments within it. We're not going to mark them at the college, but you'll have assessments within it. That's part of that, and we'll talk to you more as time goes on about exactly how that's going to work. But they're normally going to be ministry artefacts. So what I mean by ministry artefact is that, here's an easy one, within a teaching scenario, and we're doing something on teaching, then we're going to want you to develop an appropriate teaching thing that you might use at preaching in church or teaching at Sunday school or wherever it's going to be. It may be some sort of a ministry artefact of knowing our theology or knowing our mission, and then basically, so it's basic. What I mean by ministry artefact is, by and large, it's something that can be used as well as done as an assessment. That's what we're going to try and do. So we're going to work at, I mean, for one person it'll take 12 hours, for another person it'll take 6 hours, and how long you put into it's up to you. But ideally, it's about 10 hours over a school term. So it's minimal demand, okay, in all of that. And so that's roughly about 45 minutes a week is where we're looking at as an average. We're working on graduate attributes. There are 2 ways you can do it. And the 2 ways are synchronous and asynchronous. So they're just big words, so that's done. So the synchronous way means if you want to sign up as a session, as an individual, as whatever, to do it synchronously, then basically you will do it in the order that we're rolling them out, and that'll take you 2 years to get through, and that'll be just a great training program for your session. And we will give input into that. There'll be a staff member who'll be a liaison person if you're doing it synchronously, and that's great, okay? Now you might say, oh, come on, you reckon my session's going to go at that pace? That's much too fast. Okay, that's fine. Do it asynchronously. And asynchronously means you won't get the same level of that person that semester giving that support, but we'll give you general support. And then you can basically do any module in whatever order, as long as it's already rolled out. Does that make sense? So you can do it more slowly if you want, but it's already been rolled out. So basically, we just go back 2 slides. So synchronously, over the next 2 years, starting next year, 1 school term, you'll just do that. Okay? asynchronously, do what you want, but remember, they're being rolled out in that order over the next 2 years. That makes sense, doesn't it? What could be more flexible? So that's the green elders training course. Sounds pretty cool. Okay? I'm thinking of enrolling. The second one is also just as good. It's going to take some more effort, and it's going to, yes, it's going to favour people in Sydney. Yes, it's going to, but yeah, I'll tell you the second one. Let's go for it. The second one we're calling a Church Leader Foundation program. We're not calling it elders programs. Elders, of course, are church leaders, aren't they? But are there other leaders in your church who aren't elders? Absolutely. So this is a foundation program for church leaders, okay? And this is basically using an ACT award. So if you're a graduate of any discipline, you have a Bachelor of Arts from the University of New South Wales or something, then you can do this as what's called a Graduate Diploma of Divinity. If you're not a graduate, you can do what's called a Diploma in Ministry. They're just names. They're ACT courses, okay? What are we asking here? Well, we're basically going to look at, now again, this is a 1-year full-time course that you can do in 1 year, or 2, or 3, or 4. And after that, you've got to ask for extensions from the ACT, okay? So 1 to 4 is what you've got. Basically, what we're going to do in that is you're going to do an overview of the Old Testament in 1 year. You're going to do an overview of the New Testament in 1 year. You're going to do a unit on theological foundations. And again, we are a Presbyterian college at Christ College, so you're going to get that same sort of standards of the denomination in there. You're going to get introduction to preaching. You're going to have a missional approach there in terms of the church in God's mission. And you're going to have a semester on leadership. So we basically think you need to know the Bible, apt to teach, know your theology, know your leadership. This one's going to cost you ACT fees that you can put on fee help if you want to. This is an ACT award. Normally, ACT awards normally take something like, I can't remember, 120 demand hours per semester or something, somewhere around there. So this is like, you know, you're in the same classes as candidates for the ministry. But we want to say that if you are close to Christ College, and if you can come and do that, and we have evening lectures, we have intensive lectures, you can do this, take a year off work and do it full time, you can do this slowly, you can look at our intensive program, our evening program, there's lots of ways through it, and you may choose to diverge from this if you want to, because you're doing an ACT award, but we've packaged this in a way that, and we've looked at graduate attributes and how these things are working, and we think that this is ideal training for church leaders, okay? So elders is within that, and other forms of church leaders are within that. So lots more stuff here on graduate attributes. You can see there that although there are more than in the green, did anyone count the green while I was there? 19. Thank you, I knew there'd be somebody. Okay, I'll leave it up there for a bit. It's a little bit more extensive there, but not too much more. The graduate attributes are pretty similar of what it's coming to, but it will require more work, and that's really good because, you know, the old adage is true that the more you put something out goes, the more you get something, whatever it is. That's the one. That's the one. Okay, so that's great. And more information can be found on these 2 courses of training if you want to go on your computer, just Christ College, the normal thing, just put a / put elders, nothing harder, and that's it. You can pick up your booklets now. You can pick up your booklets, okay? And so we've got lots of booklets, haven't we? Yeah, 1 second, Craig, I'll come to you. You get the first one. Sammy, got lots of spare booklets?
Yes, I think 500 altogether.
Okay, there's 500 booklets, so you can take some for your fellow interested people, and that's great.